Hey everybody, it's the dude here to bring you another video, and boy am I excited about this one. Man, I did not expect AMC to drop a 3.5-minute sneak peek this week, but here we are. So let's get right into it. Here is my review and analysis of The Walking Dead Season 7 premiere sneak peek, The Right-Hand Man. And that is your official spoiler warning. If you haven't seen the sneak peek, there's a link down in the description, and also there will be minor spoilers to the comic involving things that take place before the Negan scene. Alright, as soon as we fade in from black, we get our first major hint, and that is the giant red streak of blood on the right side of Rick's face. This totally eliminates anyone on the left side, because if they were to die, how would the blood get on his right side? So it's not, for sure now, Rick, Sasha, Aaron, Carl, and Eugene. Big surprise there. Now, we can talk about how much blood it is versus where the blood could have come from, but honestly, it was applied by a makeup person who was told, well, don't make it too big, because then they're going to think that the person who dies is right by Rick. And don't make it too small, because they're going to think that the person's really far away from Rick. Just make a medium blood smear. And he was just like, okay. All that the blood mark on Rick's face confirms is that anyone to his left is safe. The size and the orientation of the blood smear does not hint at who specifically died to Rick's right. Okay, so right after we fade in, we start to hear faint cries from what we can assume is the rest of the lineup, and these play throughout the whole scene. I can guarantee you that none of those voices we hear are any of our cast members. Similar to the voices we hear in the season finale when we cut to black after the person gets hit. People looked and searched and analyzed that audio to try to see if we could hear anyone's specific voice, and of course there's nothing there. The sound was recorded in post and put in later. They are not hints that slip through the cracks. Now we're still on Rick, and Negan starts talking. He says, "What? Was the joke that bad?" Now, this is a reference to a joke that Negan tells right after killing the person, and I won't spoil the joke because it's funny and fantastic. And if you're watching any YouTube videos out there that spoil the joke, they did it needlessly, and you should not watch their videos. Either way, it elicits the same reaction out of Rick. "I'm gonna kill you." "What? I didn't quite catch that. You're gonna have to speak up." "Not today. Not tomorrow. But I will kill you." Right, now this is all a little too similar to the Terminus scene, where a similarly sweaty Rick is sitting in the same position, making the same threat with the whole, "And a hatchet with a red handle. That's what I'm gonna use to kill you." But instead of Rick bringing up the weapon, Negan brings it up. "Simon, what do you have on?" Simon was kind of the face of the Saviors in the season finale before we seen Negan, and now we finally have his name, Simon. "What do you have? A knife?" To Negan, I get the feeling that he is a man who respects a good sidearm. I mean, he loves his Bat Lucille, and he judges the weapon that someone carries in the zombie apocalypse as kind of the measure of a man, so he's looking at Rick and he's thinking, well, maybe he's a knife man, and then Simon says, "A hatchet." "A hatchet?" And instead of talking about the hatchet or doing anything with the hatchet, he goes into the now famous right-hand man line. "Simon's my right-hand man. Having one of those is important. I mean, what do you have left without him?" "A whole lot of work. You have one? Maybe one of these fine people still breathing?" "Oh, or did I?" And here's the moment. He asks, "Do you have one of those?" We don't see it, but the reaction on Rick's face seems to make Negan think that he just killed his right-hand man. And it almost convinces us that Negan did kill Rick's right-hand man. Now let's really think about this. The showrunners decided to make a cliffhanger, knowing full well the dangers of spoilers. And now, online, half of their viewing audience thinks that it's Glenn and Abraham. You're telling me that 2 weeks before the premiere, they're going to release something that basically confirms that it's somebody who Rick considers their right-hand man? Guys, they're fooling us. I think the right-hand man line is specifically trying to make us think that it's one of the 3 men on Rick's right and not one of the 3 women. They are focusing us on the wrong people. The people that they know we think the death is. Why would they tell us something that sounds so blatantly like a spoiler? You know why? Because it's not a spoiler. They're trying to misdirect us. In my theory video talking about who Negan killed, I came to the conclusion that it was Maggie. The link to that video is also down in the description. So, if that's true, could Negan really wonder if he had just killed Rick's right-hand man? If he had just killed Maggie? Yes. In the season finale, Negan spent all of his time trying to keep Rick's group away from the hilltop, meaning that he knows that Rick and the hilltop have formed a relationship. Negan's compound was stormed by Rick's people, and they rescued a bunch of hilltop people. He knows about the deal between Rick's group and the hilltop group. And who made that deal? Maggie. It is totally reasonable, given all the information that we know Negan knows, that he would think Maggie is Rick's number 2. She made the deal with the hilltop, so if by any chance Gregory squealed on Rick's group, which he totally would, because he's a complete and utter bitch, Negan would know Maggie's name, and know that she made the deal against them. And he would hear that name for a second time when Glenn shows up. He would be able to identify Maggie, and he would know that she could be Rick's right-hand man. Not to mention the fact that she is literally on his right. So, the right-hand man comment could also be a reference to the fact that Rick loses his right hand in the comics. When he first meets the governor, actually, he cuts his hand off to teach him a lesson. Now, they could give this to Negan. This is the first time him and Rick are meeting, and if Negan hears from Rick that Rick still wants to kill Negan and has not fallen in line after someone's been beaten to death, then Negan might take him in the RV and chop his hand off. But for years now, I've kind of understood that it's near impossible to cut Rick's hand off, just from a production standpoint. To CG his hand off for a certain amount of episodes and then giving him some kind of cover like Merle's would just be kind of a pain in the ass. If they did, that would be fantastic, and give a better reason why they have this right-hand man line in there. So Negan stands up and puts the hatchet under his belt, just like he put the gun. Now, we can't see the gun in this shot. It might be under his shirt, it might not be. We don't really know if it was used. Then Negan grabs Rick and drags him to the RV. I'll be right back, and I'm taking Rick with me. He'll be back, or not. If not, well, I could just turn all these people inside out. Any of them that are left. And he throws him in the RV and shuts the door behind him. And then the camera slowly pans down. We see a wrinkled piece of clothing on the ground, and below that, we see the blood and the brains from the victim. Very quickly, some people think that Maggie's ring is in the blood. I'll give it to you, it definitely looks like a ring, but it also looks like anything else. And it is anything else, because there is no way that they would just give us the answer. Because someone's gonna find it, we all saw it, there's just no way. I think it's Maggie, and I still think there's no way that they put her ring in the sneak peek. It's ridiculous. Now, the piece of clothing kind of looks like the blanket that Daryl was wrapped in. I would say it's a stretch to say it's Maggie's shirt or anyone else's piece of clothing. Nobody else was really wearing something that could be taken off, so it is a further hint that something happened to Daryl. But here's the story. In one of the earlier trailers, they showed Dwight wearing Daryl's vest, and then with the right-hand man comment, which if anyone's Rick's right-hand man, it's Daryl. It seems like they want us to think it's him. Just means it's not. Anything in this sneak peek that's so blatantly obvious is a lie. Except the streak of blood. It's not Sasha, Aaron, Carl, or Eugene. It's just not. It's fine. That's a real spoiler. That one's real. So in my theory video, I say that anyone that was in the van, which is Glenn, Rosita, Daryl, and Michonne, are not going to die. And I'm going to stick to that idea. That means that the only people to Rick's right that are in the van are Maggie and Abraham. They would each also be roughly in the same spot where the pan down from the RV to the blood spatter. That's definitely not Glenn's unless he died in the center. Gets more likely as you go this way, but it doesn't even seem to be as far as Michonne. It's so close to where Rick was. So get ready, here's why it's not Abraham. Abraham's death will not affect Rick. Will not. And here's why. In the comics, Abraham gets the arrow through the eye from Dwight, just like Denise did this season. And then right afterwards, Rick is having this really kind of sweet scene with Andrea, who's one, still alive, and two, dating Rick. And they kind of both laugh, and then Andrea gets quiet and she's just like, look at us. The conversation we just had after putting a friend in the ground, what's wrong with us? And Rick is like, well, it is what it is. She's like, yeah. And he says, I feel like I'm already forgetting him. Abraham. And why wouldn't he? Rick met Abraham after Lori died. After Lori died, Rick changed. Rick stopped trusting people. Before Lori died, he was still a cop. He still had a certain trust in humanity. He sent Tyrese and Sasha away. He wouldn't trust some of the most trustworthy people ever. Anyone that Rick meets after that point doesn't mean as much to him. This whole past season, he has struggled with gaining a connection to all the people he's met in Alexandria. And any people he met before he lost Lori, like Glenn and Daryl and Carol and Maggie, they mean more to him than everyone he meets afterwards. So it has to be one of them. And that is not Abraham. And Abraham and him haven't even become friends. When they first meet each other, they totally disagree. That disagreement causes them to split up the group, and they really don't have any other scenes after that. They did have one scene in the episode before the season finale where Abraham's like smoking a cigar, you ready to grab the world by the balls and whatever? And he's like, yeah, I am. That is just not enough of a relationship to get Rick to have the reaction he's having right now. Honestly, if Abraham died, Rick would probably be a little relieved that it wasn't someone he cared more about. And be honest, so would you. It's not going to be Abraham. If it's Abraham, what have I been doing all this for? It's not Abraham. Alright, now finally, I want to talk about something that really bugs me about this sneak peek. It's still shot like they're hiding the death. It's all a close-up on Rick with nobody in the background, a close-up on Negan, nobody in the background, and that wide shot of Negan dragging Rick into the RV. I kind of figured that once we learned the death, I was going to see all these reactions of people. Now, of course, they're not going to give that to us in the sneak peek. But if this scene is pulled straight out of the Season 7 premiere and isn't edited any differently in the final version, well, it kind of looks like they're not going to let us know who died right away. Like in the final version, if we're not hearing the actual cries of the actors in the background, if when Rick gets taken in, we don't cut to Carl, who's obviously alive, see his reaction, cut to Michonne, who might be alive, see her reaction, it just feels like they're saving the reveal. And that's not good. We all really want that reveal, and we don't want to have to put up with not knowing for 10 minutes. I mean, maybe they're waiting to reveal it after this conversation between Negan and Rick in the RV, but I don't know why. So if the scene is edited different in the final version, we'll know it and we'll see it. But as it stands, if that's what the scene looks like in the episode, they're going to continue to hide it. Okay, so we got more questions than answers, but that's good. That's what they want. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them down in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer them. Please follow me on Twitter, like and subscribe, and watch it again. This has been The Dude. See ya.